Hey guys, tonight we drift softly into the shadowed art of ancient Egyptian propaganda. A quiet world where power spoke in stone and silence carried meaning. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these calm journeys into the past. And let your thoughts slow as the Nile moves steadily under moonlight. Comment where you are listening from and what time it is there. Though for now there is no rush, no urgency, only the gentle unfolding of history. Settle in, breathe slowly, and allow the modern world to fade as we uncover the Pharaoh's spin doctors. Those careful hands and patient minds who shaped eternity, one carved symbol at a time. Imagine the night air cooling the desert sands, the stars stretching endlessly above, and somewhere within a temple courtyard, a scribe pauses, reed pen hovering, deciding how a king will be remembered for 10,000 years. This is not the loud history of battles shouted across textbooks, but the quiet history of control, reassurance, and divine storytelling. It is a history meant to be believed, absorbed, and never questioned. As torchlight flickers against limestone walls, we begin. Dawn over the royal workshops comes gently, with the low murmur of voices and the soft scrape of stone tools awakening before the city itself. In these workshops, far from the public eye, the true narrative of Egypt is prepared. Artisans stretch their fingers stiff from yesterday's labor, and scribes unroll papyrus that smells faintly of river reeds and ink. This is where reality is smoothed, sharpened, and polished. A poor harvest is not recorded as failure, but as a mysterious test from the gods. A rebellious border town does not resist. It is lovingly described as having been pacified. The men who work here are not liars in their own minds. They are caretakers of cosmic balance, servants of Mot, the sacred order that holds the universe together. If the king appears weak, the universe trembles, so weakness must be edited away, quietly, respectfully, with reverence. The chisel strikes stone in slow rhythm, each blow echoing like a heartbeat, turning events into eternity. The scribes who crafted eternity lived lives of patience and discipline. Their days followed rituals as precise as temple ceremonies. They washed, they prayed, they prepared their tools. Ink was mixed carefully, black for permanence, red for emphasis and warning. Words themselves were believed to hold power, so choosing the right ones mattered deeply. When a pharaoh marched north and returned with fewer prisoners than expected, the scribe did not invent wildly. He refrained. The king surveyed the lands, established fear, received tribute willingly given. On temple walls, enemies are always shown kneeling, always smaller, always already defeated. Even when reality was messy and uncertain, the record remained calm and absolute. The scribe's hand never trembled in the final carving. Stone does not admit doubt. As the sun arcs higher, light spills across monumental inscriptions at Karnak and Luxor, where victories stretch across walls like endless parades. Here Ramesses stands forever youthful, forever triumphant, smiting enemies who seem to multiply endlessly just so he may defeat them again. The Battle of Kadesh, in truth a hard-fought stalemate, becomes in relief a solitary heroic stand. The king abandoned yet divinely protected, charging alone into chaos. The text tells us he fought thousands by himself, his horses racing like the wind. his arm strong because Ammon stood beside him. There is no space on the wall for confusion or compromise. The silence of stone accepts only certainty. A lost battle becomes a divine lesson. A draw becomes overwhelming victory. The audience, passing slowly beneath these scenes, absorbs the message without effort. The king is strong. The gods approve. Order remains. With twilight's hush approaching, we step into the cool interiors of temples where priests move like shadows. These men are not only servants of gods, but masters of messaging. They control access to the divine voice, interpreting omens, declaring festivals, and confirming royal legitimacy through ritual. When Hatshepsut rose to power, ruling as a female pharaoh in a world of male kings, it was the priests and scribes who worked patiently to normalize the extraordinary. Her birth was rewritten as divine conception. Ammon himself visited her mother, the walls tell us, and the gods rejoiced at her coming. Obelisks were raised, their tips catching sunlight like frozen prayers, proclaiming her rightful place. Over time, repetition did its quiet work. What was once surprising became eternal truth. The temple does not argue, it simply repeats. Deeper into the night scrolls, we find the subtle art of omission. Some names fade, some deeds vanish. Akhenaten's religious revolution, disruptive and unsettling, is later erased with careful determination. His name is chipped away, his images defaced, his memory scattered like dust. This too is public relations, not loud but methodical. Silence can be more powerful than proclamation. To remove someone from history is to deny them an afterlife, a fate worse than death in Egyptian belief. The stoneworkers who erase do so carefully, respectfully, knowing the gravity of their task. History is not only written, it is unwritten. The Rosetta Stone, centuries later, will reveal the mechanics of royal messaging in triplicate. The same decree carved in hieroglyphs, Demotic, and Greek, ensuring that every audience hears the same praise, the same generosity, the same divine favor bestowed upon the king. Taxes forgiven become acts of mercy. Political necessity becomes benevolence. Language shifts, slightly, tone adjusted, but meaning remains controlled. This is not chaos. It is coordination. The state speaks with one voice, calm and reassuring. As night deepens, incense smoke curls upward, carrying prayers and proclamations alike. Festivals fill streets with sound and color, reinforcing what walls and papyri have already said. The pharaoh feeds the gods feed the people. When things go wrong, explanations are ready. The Nile's failure is temporary. The gods are testing devotion. The king responds with offerings. Balance will return. It always does, according to the story. And stories, told softly enough and long enough, become reality. We drift now toward the riverbank, listening to water lap against stone, reflecting on the quiet genius of ancient Egyptian public relations. It was never frantic, never loud. It trusted time. It trusted repetition. It trusted stone, ritual, and belief. The spin doctors of Egypt did not chase approval. They assumed it, carved it, and waited for the world to agree. And in many ways, it did. But as the sun lowers again and evening spreads its cool blue veil across the land, the machinery of royal image-making continues without pause, steady as the river itself. Because reputation in ancient Egypt was not something maintained once, but something tended daily, like irrigation channels that must be cleared again and again lest chaos seep back in. In quiet offices tucked behind temple courtyards, scribes sit cross-legged on woven mats, their backs straight, their movements economical, copying decrees that praise the king's generosity in providing grain, oil, and beer, even when those same goods were carefully redistributed from temples that already controlled vast stores. To the people who heard these decrees read aloud, the distinction hardly mattered. The words were soothing, the rhythm was familiar. The king provides, the gods approve, life continues. Ink dries slowly on papyrus, darkening as it settles, and with it the official version of events settles too, becoming firm, unquestioned, safe. The daily routines of these propagandists were not glamorous, but they were powerful in their quiet repetition. At dawn, records were reviewed. At midday, corrections were discussed in low voices. By evening, final versions were approved, often by overseers who answered directly to the palace or the high priesthood. A phrase here might be softened, a number there adjusted, not lies exactly, but careful framing. If a construction project ran late, the inscription would emphasize its eventual perfection rather than its delay. If labor was compulsory, it was described as joyful service to the gods. Reliefs show smiling workers hauling stone, muscles idealized, faces serene. Because the image mattered more than the ache in real shoulders, the viewer, centuries later, sees harmony carved into limestone and accepts it as truth. With twilight's hush deepening, we turn toward the edges of empire, where letters traveled slowly and selectively. The Amana letters, written in cuneiform on clay tablets, reveal a more anxious world beneath the polished surface. Local rulers complain, plead, exaggerate threats, hoping for military aid or favor. Yet when these same regions appear in Egyptian inscriptions, unrest dissolves into obedience. A rebellious city becomes one that forgot its duties briefly before being corrected. A failed alliance becomes a reaffirmation of loyalty. The contrast is striking, but only if one can see both sides. Most could not. Control of information was control of reality. As the night grows deeper, we wander through memory and stone to the practice of monumental storytelling. Obelisks rise like frozen sunbeams, their inscriptions proclaiming not only devotion, but legitimacy. Hatshepsut's obelisks at Karnak speak endlessly of her piety and divine favor. Their surfaces once gleaming with electrum so that sunlight itself seemed to endorse her rule. Passers-by did not read these texts in a rush. They absorbed them slowly, over years, over generations. Children grew up beneath them. Old men rested in their shadows. The message seeped into daily life. This ruler belongs here. This ruler is chosen. Repetition, again, did the work. Deeper into the night scrolls, we encounter humor so subtle it almost disappears. A lost campaign is framed as a journey of inspection. A troublesome official is never disgraced publicly. His name simply stops appearing. It is a gentle erasure, polite, and final. The Egyptians did not mock their own system openly, but the quiet irony is there for those who listen closely. A king who needs endless inscriptions declaring his strength is perhaps not as secure as this stone suggests. Yet the system does not acknowledge this. It continues, unbothered, serene. The priests, meanwhile, refine their role as intermediaries between heaven and earth. Oracle processions allow gods to speak through the movement of sacred barks, answering yes or no to carefully phrased questions. These questions are rarely neutral. They are crafted to guide outcomes, to confirm decisions already made. When the god nods approval, the crowd exhales. The king's choice is divine. Doubt dissolves. The ritual is calming, almost hypnotic, and it works because it feels ancient, inevitable, beyond argument. As moonlight reflects off the Nile, carrying silver ripples toward the horizon, we consider the sensory world that reinforced these messages. The smell of incense in temples, the chant of hymns echoing off stone, the sight of colossal statues gazing serenely into distance. All of it works together, not as a single announcement, but as an environment. One does not question the order of things any more than one questions the river's flow. This is public relations, not as campaign, but as atmosphere. Even death is folded into this system. Tomb inscriptions present idealized lives, lists of titles and virtues that smooth over conflicts and failures. The afterlife requires a good story, and the living prepare it carefully. False doors invite offerings and prayers, but they also present the deceased as eternally favored, eternally respected. For officials close to the throne, this reflected glory reinforces the king's central role. If his servants are righteous, how much more so is he? Toward the late hours of night, when thoughts slow and edges blur, we return to the idea of failure, so carefully avoided. When plagues strike or borders weaken, explanations are framed within cosmic order. The gods are displeased, but responsive. Rituals are intensified. Donations increase. The system adapts without admitting fault. There is comfort in this. Anxiety is given a shape, then soothed away. The king remains central, steady, necessary. And so, as stars wheel overhead and centuries pass like drifting sand, the work of Egypt's spin doctors endures. Their success lies not in deception alone, but in consistency, patience, and deep understanding of belief. They knew that people seek reassurance more than truth, stability more than accuracy. They provided it softly, beautifully, in stone and smoke and song. And in doing so, they shaped not only their own time, but ours. Because even now, when we think of pharaohs, we see what they wanted us to see. As the night settles more deeply, and the air cools enough for breath to feel soft and slow, we drift further into the machinery of memory, where time itself becomes an ally of royal image-making, stretching small adjustments into eternal truths. In ancient Egypt, patience was power. No proclamation needed urgency. No correction required speed. The scribes understood that if a message was repeated gently for long enough, it no longer sounded like persuasion. It sounded like the natural order of things. Papyrus crackled faintly as it was unrolled again and again. Familiar phrases traced by practiced hands. each stroke reinforcing a reality already half believed. In palace corridors scented faintly with resin and oil, officials discussed wording with the calm seriousness of men adjusting the course of the stars. Titles mattered, epithets mattered. To call a king strong bull or beloved of Ammon was not decoration. It was strategy. These phrases appeared everywhere, on seals, on doorways, on statues placed where sunlight would catch their carved curves at certain hours of the day. The king was not only seen, he was encountered repeatedly, rhythmically, like a refrain that lulled the mind into acceptance. Even those who could not read absorbed meaning through scale and placement. Size itself was language. The larger the statue, the greater the certainty it conveyed. But as the sun sinks beyond memory, and we move quietly into deeper hours, we begin to notice the careful balance between fear and reassurance. Enemies are always present in Egyptian art, but they are never threatening for long. They exist to be defeated, subdued, organized beneath the king's feet. Nubians, Libyans, Asiatics, all rendered with distinctive features, frozen in gestures of submission. This was not only a message to foreigners, it was a lullaby for citizens. The world beyond Egypt is chaotic, dangerous, and in need of control. Inside Egypt, order reigns. Sleep is easier when danger is shown to be already handled. Behind these images, there were men who decided how chaos would look when safely contained. Artists followed strict conventions, grids etched faintly into stone to guide proportions. Innovation was rare and risky. Familiarity was comforting. A defeated enemy in the reign of one pharaoh looked much like a defeated enemy a century earlier. This continuity smoothed over changes in real power. Even when borders shifted or influence waned, the visual language stayed the same. The message did not need updating. It needed repeating. With midnight approaching, we turn again to the priests, whose chants floated through temple halls like slow-moving water. Hymns praised the king not only for military might, but for moral perfection. He feeds the hungry. He clothes the naked. He maintains mocked. These phrases echo across texts and centuries, creating a portrait so ideal that contradiction feels almost impious. To doubt the king's virtue is to doubt the god's judgment, and so doubt dissolves. Not through force, but through spiritual framing. In quieter corners of history, we find hints of resistance, faint and quickly softened. A disgruntled official writes a private complaint. A border governor exaggerates threats to gain resources. These voices exist, but they rarely reach stone. When they do, they are absorbed and neutralized. A complaint becomes evidence of the king's attentive justice. A crisis becomes proof of his decisive action. The system does not silence dissent loudly. It repurposes it. As hours pass and the mind drifts, we consider how time itself was enlisted. Calendars marked festivals that celebrated royal jubilees, reaffirming vitality even as rulers aged. This festival, in particular, was a masterpiece of reassurance, a ritual renewal of kingship, staged to demonstrate physical and spiritual strength. Even if the king moves slowly, the ceremony proclaimed vigor. The image endured longer than the body ever could. The night deepens further, and thoughts slow like the river at its widest point. We imagine a common villager standing before a temple wall, running fingers along cool stone, tracing carved signs without fully understanding them. Meaning seeps in any way. The king is everywhere. The gods smile. The future feels stable. This is the quiet triumph of ancient public relations. It does not argue. It surrounds. And so, wrapped in darkness and incense and repetition, Egypt's carefully shaped reality holds firm. Empires rise and fall, but the image remains serene. Pharaohs become symbols more than men. Their spin doctors, unnamed and mostly forgotten, succeed precisely because they disappear behind the story. Their reward is not recognition, but permanence. As we linger here, suspended between wakefulness and sleep, the carved walls seem almost to breathe, whispering the same assurances they have always whispered. Order endures. The gods are pleased. The king reigns forever. As the deepest stretch of night settles in, and the world feels hushed and distant, we glide further into the long shadow cast by royal storytelling, where even memory itself was guided gently into approved paths. In ancient Egypt, remembrance was not passive. It was managed. It was shaped with care, like a garden bordered by stone, where certain plants were encouraged to grow tall while others were quietly removed before they could take root. The past, after all, was not something to be studied critically. It was something to be honored correctly, and correctness was decided close to the throne. In rooms lit by small oil lamps, their flames trembling but steady, officials reviewed lists of ancestors, tracing lines of legitimacy back through generations. Genealogy was another form of reassurance. A king was never simply a man who ruled now. He was the continuation of an unbroken chain stretching back to the gods themselves. Any gaps were smoothed over. Any inconvenient relatives were quietly excluded. What mattered was the impression of continuity, of inevitability. When people believe that things have always been this way, they stop imagining alternatives. As hours pass slowly and the air grows cooler, we notice how monuments were placed not randomly, but strategically aligned with processional routes, river landings, and festival paths. Public relations in Egypt understood movement. A crowd approaching a temple encountered a carefully planned sequence of images, each reinforcing the last. First the colossal statues, dwarfing the human scale. Then the pylons, towering gates that framed the sky itself. Then reliefs of the king offering to the gods, receiving symbols of life and power in return. By the time one reached the inner courtyard, the message had already settled deep. The king is necessary. The gods agree. Even the gods themselves were drawn into this carefully balanced exchange. Divine favor was not abstract. It was visible, transactional, almost contractual. In inscriptions, gods speak directly, praising the king for building temples, expanding offerings, restoring order. In return, they promise victory, abundance, longevity. This dialogue appears again and again, until it feels less like propaganda and more like a natural law. Build temples, receive blessings, rule well, live forever. The simplicity is calming. Complexity is avoided. As we drift toward the late hours before dawn, when thoughts become loose and images blur softly together, we find the subtle use of emotion in these narratives. Fear is present, but controlled. Love is present, but formal. Pride is encouraged, but collective. The people are invited to feel proud of their king, proud of their land, proud of their place within the order of things. Individual suffering disappears into the larger harmony. The story is bigger than any one life. That, too, is comforting. In tunes carved deep into cliffs, the same techniques appear on a smaller scale. Officials mirror royal imagery, presenting themselves as just, generous, beloved. This imitation reinforces hierarchy. If even minor officials require such careful storytelling, how much more perfect must the king be? The style flows downward, replicating itself endlessly, creating a unified visual language that leaves little room for doubt or variation. As the sky outside begins to pale almost imperceptibly, signaling that dawn will eventually return, we reflect on how little urgency there was in all of this. Egyptian public relations did not chase attention. It waited. It trusted stone to outlast flesh, ritual to outlast rumor, repetition to outlast resistance. It assumed that if a message was true enough times, it would become true in the only way that mattered. It would be believed. The final hours of night are the quietest, when even thoughts seem to slow and stretch. In that stillness, the achievements of Egypt's spin doctors feel almost gentle. They did not shout. They did not argue. They arranged the world so that alternative stories faded naturally, like stars at sunrise. And when the sun rose again over temples and fields, the same images waited, unchanged, patient, eternal. Here wrapped in the soft glow before morning, we rest with that idea that power in ancient Egypt was not only held by kings and armies, but by those who understood how humans remember, how they believe, how they sleep peacefully beneath familiar stories. The Nile continues its slow journey. Stone remains cool, and the narrative endures, steady as breath. As the first hint of dawn brushes the horizon, and the stars quietly loosen their hold, we move into the gentlest layer of this long story, where repetition becomes tradition and tradition becomes truth without ever announcing the change. Ancient Egyptian public relations did not end with a single reign or a single generation. It flowed forward, inherited like a ritual gesture, passed from one set of careful hands to the next. Each new pharaoh stepped into a narrative already prepared, already polished smooth by centuries of belief. All that was required was to continue the rhythm. In early morning light, temple doors opened slowly, wood creaking softly, and priests emerged carrying offerings whose symbolism is as important as their substance. Bread, beer, incense, flowers. These are ordinary things, but placed into sacred context, they become proof of royal devotion. In inscriptions, the king is always the one offering. Even when the physical act is performed by a priest, the image matters more than the motion. The people watching understand this instinctively. What they see is continuity. The king gives, the gods receive, the cycle holds. As hours pass quietly, scribes continue their careful labor, copying older texts with deliberate faithfulness. Innovation is rare and treated cautiously. Familiar phrases are comforting. Beloved of Ammon, Lord of the two lands, he who maintains Mot. These words appear so often that they lose sharp edges and become background music for daily life. No one stops to question them. Questioning would feel strange, almost disruptive, like doubting the sunrise. In administrative buildings away from the grandeur of temples, records of taxes and labor are kept with equal care, though their language is softer than the reality they describe. Grain taken becomes grain redistributed. Labor demanded becomes service offered. Even hardship is folded gently into the story of shared purpose. When villagers are called to work on royal projects, inscriptions later describe their efforts as joyful participation in divine creation. The stone remembers contentment, even if bodies remembered fatigue. As the sun climbs higher, illuminating reliefs that have already seen 1,000 mornings, we reflect on how deeply this system trusted time. A single inscription might reach only a few, but 10 inscriptions, repeated across decades, reached everyone. Children grew up seeing the same images their grandparents had seen. Familiarity bred acceptance. Acceptance bred loyalty. Loyalty required no enforcement when belief had already settled in. Later, as afternoon warmth spreads and shadows shorten, we find the quiet power of silence once more. Some events simply vanish. A failed building project leaves no trace. A disgraced official dissolves into anonymity. This absence is not noticed by most. Life moves on. The official story remains smooth, uninterrupted. History, in this system, is not a complete record. It is a curated one, designed for peace of mind rather than accuracy. As evening approaches again, the daily cycle completes itself, mirroring the cosmic cycles the Egyptians held sacred. The sun sets, promising return. The king ages, promising renewal. Even death fits neatly into this pattern. Royal tombs are prepared long before they are needed, filled with texts that ensure continuity beyond life itself. The king does not truly die. He transforms. The story continues without pause. In the quiet moments before sleep, when the world feels distant and the mind drifts easily, we recognize the ultimate success of Egypt's spin doctors. Their work does not demand attention. It creates comfort. It reassures people that the universe is ordered, watched over, and fundamentally stable. That reassurance is powerful. It invites rest. It invites trust. And so, as night returns once more, and the Nile reflects moonlight like a ribbon of silver, we allow the rhythm of this ancient narrative to slow our thoughts. Stone remembers. Words endure. Belief settles gently, like dust on a temple floor, layer by layer, century by century. Outside grows quiet enough for even distant sounds to soften. We drift further into the long afterlife of these carefully shaped stories, where the living and the dead share the same calm narrative space. In ancient Egypt, public relations did not stop at the boundary of breath. It crossed gently into eternity. What one was remembered as mattered as much as what one did, and remembrance itself was treated as a resource to be managed wisely. Entombed chapels lit by slanting moonlight. Inscriptions whisper assurances to both the living and the dead. The king is eternal. The order he upheld continues. Offerings given today sustain spirits tomorrow. These messages serve many purposes at once. They comfort families. They encourage ritual. They reaffirm hierarchy. And always, quietly, they circle back to the central figure of the pharaoh, whose role as mediator between worlds remains unquestioned. Even in death, the king's image performs its work. As hours stretch long and slow, we notice how later generations interacted with these monuments, repairing them, reinscribing them, sometimes reusing stones from older structures. Even reuse was handled carefully. Names might be replaced, but titles and imagery stayed familiar. A new king stepping into an old temple aligned himself with ancient authority by preserving its visual language. Change was disguised as continuity. Innovation wore the mask of tradition. This kept anxiety low and trust high. In the stillness of the night, it becomes clear that Egyptian propaganda relied deeply on emotional economy. There was no need to overwhelm. The message was simple and repeated endlessly. Stability is sacred. Authority is divine. Order is fragile and must be protected. These ideas were not debated. They were absorbed like lullabies heard from infancy. When people know the words by heart, they stop listening consciously, yet the meaning remains. As the moon moves slowly across the sky, casting shifting shadows across carved faces that never change expression, we reflect on the absence of individual voices in this vast narrative. Personal opinions fade. Collective identity strengthens. The king is not just a ruler. He is a symbol that gathers many lives into one story. This reduces uncertainty. It also reduces individuality. But for a society that valued harmony above all, this trade felt natural, even necessary. Toward the late hours, when the body grows heavy and the mind floats gently between thoughts, we consider how foreign visitors must have felt encountering this environment. Ambassadors walking through colonnades lined with reliefs of defeated enemies would understand the message without translation. Strength is displayed calmly, confidently, without haste. There is no need to threaten explicitly. The stone has already spoken. Even centuries later, when power shifted and Egypt came under foreign rule, the language of pharaonic legitimacy remained influential. New rulers adopted old imagery, old titles, old gods. They understood that the system worked because it soothed rather than provoked. To rule Egypt was to speak its visual and spiritual language fluently. Anything else felt jarring, unsafe. As the night edges closer to dawn once more, the rhythm returns. Offerings will be made. Hymns will be sung. Inscriptions will remain unchanged. The calm certainty of the story will continue to cradle generations. And in this certainty, people will sleep, work, hope, and die, trusting that the world is as it appears on temple walls. Here, in this quiet moment suspended between past and present, we rest with the realization that ancient Egyptian public relations was not a trick, but a worldview. It shaped how people saw themselves, their rulers, and the cosmos itself. Its greatest achievement was not persuasion, but peace of mind. The Nile flows on. The stone remains cool, and the story, once set, continues to tell itself. As the final hours of night stretch softly, when even dreams seem to slow their pace, we move into the most delicate layer of this long meditation, where the success of ancient Egyptian public relations reveals itself not through noise or spectacle, but through endurance. Centuries pass quietly now, like slow breaths. Dynasties change, accents shift, Gods merge and separate. Yet the core story remains steady, held in place by stone, ritual, and memory. In these hours, we notice how the system survives not because it is rigid, but because it is flexible in ways that feel invisible. New realities are absorbed gently into old frameworks. A foreign ruler becomes chosen by the gods. A political compromise becomes divinely guided peace. The words adjust, but the tone remains the same. Certain, reassuring. The public never feels the strain of change, because change is presented as continuation. As the sky begins to lighten almost imperceptibly, we think of the ordinary people who lived their entire lives within this carefully shaped world. Farmers rising before sunrise, craftsmen working by daylight filtered through courtyards, children learning stories of gods, and kings as naturally as they learned the seasons. For them, propaganda was not something imposed. It was simply the air they breathed. The king's image was as familiar as the river, the gods' approval as predictable as the sun. In the quiet after midnight, the true brilliance of Egypt's spin doctors lies in how rarely they needed correction. The system was designed to prevent contradiction before it arose. By aligning political power with cosmic order, disagreement became more than rebellion. It became disorder, and disorder was something no one wished to invite. Peace, even imperfect peace, felt safer. As dawn approaches and birds begin to stir, we realize that the greatest victories of this system were never carved. They lived in expectation, in assumption, in the calm acceptance that tomorrow would resemble yesterday. When people believe this deeply, governance becomes easier, quieter, almost invisible. Authority feels natural. Resistance feels strange. The carved walls, now cool and pale in early light, do not boast. They do not rush. They wait. They know that time is on their side. Empires elsewhere rise quickly and fall loudly. Egypt prefers the slow path, the patient path, the path where memory is shaped gently, then left alone to harden. As the sun finally lifts above the horizon, casting warm gold across temples and fields, the night's long story settles into rest. The Nile glows softly. Incense smoke will soon rise again. Hymns will echo once more. The same phrases will be spoken, the same images seen, the same reassurances offered. And so we come to the quiet end of this journey, understanding that ancient Egyptian public relations was not about convincing people of something new, but about helping them sleep peacefully within something familiar. It was the art of making power feel timeless, benevolent, and inevitable. We've peeled back the veils of ancient spin tonight, gently and without urgency. If you enjoyed this calm drift through history, remember to like and subscribe, and share where you were listening from as the night passed. For now, let the river's rhythm carry your thoughts away, and allow the steady certainty of stone and story to fade softly into sleep.
As we stand in the present moment, the river of time keeps flowing forward. What lies ahead is not written in stone, but in the choice we make today. History has shown us that every ending is a new beginning. Every fall is followed by a rise. Let us look ahead with hope and wisdom to what the future might hold. The age of unity. In the coming years, the world may become even more connected. Borders between nations will feel less important. People from different lands will work together on big dreams, healing the earth, exploring space, and solving problems like hunger and sickness. Imagine a world where every child has a school, every family has clean water, and every person has a voice. This is not just a dream, it is a possibility. History has taught us that when human unity, great things happen. From the first fire to the first spaceship, progress comes from sharing knowledge and helping one another. The stars are calling once again after the moon. Human will reach Mars. As we stand in the present moment, the river of time keeps flowing forward. What lies ahead is not written in stone, but in the choice we make today. History has shown us that every ending is a new beginning. Every fall is followed by a rise. Let us look ahead with hope and wisdom to what the future might hold. The age of unity. In the coming years, the world may become even more connected. Borders between nations will feel less important. People from different lands will work together on big dreams, healing the earth, exploring space, and solving problems like hunger and sickness. Imagine a world where every child has a school, every family has clean water, and every person has a voice. This is not just a dream, it is a possibility. History has taught us that when human unity, great things happen. From the first fire to the first spaceship, progress comes from sharing knowledge and helping one another. The stars are calling once again after the moon. Human will reach Mars. As we stand in the present moment, the river of time keeps flowing forward. What lies ahead is not written in stone, but in the choice we make today. History has shown us that every ending is a new beginning. Every fall is followed by a rise. Let us look ahead with hope and wisdom to what the future might hold. The age of unity. In the coming years, the world may become even more connected. Borders between nations will feel less important. People from different lands will work together on big dreams, healing the earth, exploring space, and solving problems like hunger and sickness. Imagine a world where every child has a school, every family has clean water, and every person has a voice. This is not just a dream, it is a possibility. History has taught us that when human unity, great things happen. From the first fire to the first spaceship, progress comes from sharing knowledge and helping one another. The stars are calling once again after the moon. Human will reach Mars. As we stand in the present moment, the river of time keeps flowing forward. What lies ahead is not written in stone, but in the choice we make today. History has shown us that every ending is a new beginning. Every fall is followed by a rise. Let us look ahead with hope and wisdom to what the future might hold. The age of unity. In the coming years, the world may become even more connected. Borders between nations will feel less important. People from different lands will work together on big dreams, healing the earth, exploring space, and solving problems like hunger and sickness. Imagine a world where every child has a school, every family has clean water, and every person has a voice. This is not just a dream, it is a possibility. History has taught us that when human unity, great things happen. From the first fire to the first spaceship, progress comes from sharing knowledge and helping one another. The stars are calling once again after the moon. Human will reach Mars. As we stand in the present moment, the river of time keeps flowing forward. What lies ahead is not written in stone, but in the choice we make today. History has shown us that every ending is a new beginning. Every fall is followed by a rise. Let us look ahead with hope and wisdom to what the future might hold. The age of unity. In the coming years, the world may become even more connected. Borders between nations will feel less important. People from different lands will work together on big dreams, healing the earth, exploring space, and solving problems like hunger and sickness. Imagine a world where every child has a school, every family has clean water, and every person has a voice. This is not just a dream, it is a possibility. History has taught us that when human unity, great things happen. From the first fire to the first spaceship, progress comes from sharing knowledge and helping one another. The stars are calling once again after the moon. Human will reach Mars. As we stand in the present moment, the river of time keeps flowing forward. What lies ahead is not written in stone, but in the choice we make today. History has shown us that every ending is a new beginning. Every fall is followed by a rise. Let us look ahead with hope and wisdom to what the future might hold. The age of unity. In the coming years, the world may become even more connected. Borders between nations will feel less important. People from different lands will work together on big dreams, healing the earth, exploring space, and solving problems like hunger and sickness. Imagine a world where every child has a school, every family has clean water, and every person has a voice. This is not just a dream, it is a possibility. History has taught us that when human unity, great things happen. From the first fire to the first spaceship, progress comes from sharing knowledge and helping one another. The stars are calling once again after the moon. Human will reach Mars. As we stand in the present moment, the river of time keeps flowing forward. What lies ahead is not written in stone, but in the choice we make today. History has shown us that every ending is a new beginning. Every fall is followed by a rise. Let us look ahead with hope and wisdom to what the future might hold. The age of unity. In the coming years, the world may become even more connected. Borders between nations will feel less important. People from different lands will work together on big dreams, healing the earth, exploring space, and solving problems like hunger and sickness. Imagine a world where every child has a school, every family has clean water, and every person has a voice. This is not just a dream, it is a possibility. History has taught us that when human unity, great things happen. From the first fire to the first spaceship, progress comes from sharing knowledge and helping one another. The stars are calling once again after the moon. Human will reach Mars.